This is the Killer Innovations Podcast with Phil McKinney. Keep in mind that the information and opinions expressed in this podcast are Phil's, and Phil's alone, and they don't necessarily reflect those of his past, current, or future employers. Now, here's Phil McKinney.
It's easy to be critical of others when it comes to innovation. We often talk about the fact that executives don't get it. The antibodies get in the way within your organization. There's never enough resources to get the innovation pulled together. But before we go off and start criticizing others, check your own team. Do you and your team have an innovation attitude? Now, what do I mean by an innovation attitude? 1, do you truly believe you and your team can innovate in your business and industry? In some cases, organizations have just given up. 2, are you committed to fight through the self-doubt? There's always this mind game that gets played. Are you willing to fight through that? And 3, are you willing to get out of your comfort zone? Are you willing to do things that you're just plain uncomfortable to do? So let me go into these a little bit more detail. So what does I mean by innovate within your company or industry? Many have written off their companies or their industries as just being beyond innovation. It's a commodity business. It's all about price. It's all about squeezing, blood out of the rock. I don't believe that. I believe that any business, any industry, anywhere in the world is available for innovation. There's an innovation opportunity everywhere. I mean, look, when I came to HP and part of the PC business, that was, 7 years ago, everybody had written the PC business completely off. PCs were a commodity, it was purely a price game, and there was no room for innovation. And in the process, HP went from being, number 3 or number 4 in the marketplace, losing billions of dollars a year for HP, to now being the number 1 PC manufacturer and making a strong profit relative to all of its competitors. So a complete reversal because there's an innovation attitude. Just because others have written it off doesn't mean you write it off. It may mean you have to work harder to find it, but every industry, every company has an opportunity for innovation. Now, the other piece of this is the belief about the role within the organization. Some believe that, the innovation attitude is great and the ability to have that focus on being able to believe that you can do it within your company and your industry, but that's R&D. That's the innovation team. That's the senior executive's responsibility. Bogus. An innovation attitude when it comes to believing that your company and industry is open to innovation is the fact that everybody in your organization needs to participate, can contribute, and should contribute. One example is there's a course I taught inside of HP, and now I teach it outside of HP, called the Innovation Bootcamp. It's a very intense course to teach people the fundamental skills, basically to convince non-believers that they can be creative, that they can be innovative, that they can go out and change their organization or change their career. In one of these innovation boot camps, an executive assistant participated. Now, you would think of as executive assistants being responsible for coordinating calendars and booking travel and conference rooms and those kinds of things. In this case, an executive assistant took the innovation boot camp course and went off and truly believed that she could have an impact. What did she focus in on? Expense reports. She looked at all of the expense report process and realized how frustrating it was for employees. This particular person figured out a way to shave off about 10 minutes off of an expense report. So think about it. Large organizations, even small organizations, if you could save 10 minutes on how you do your expense reporting, what would the impact be to your organization given how many expense reports you do every month and your employees do every month? So here was an executive assistant who took the innovation challenge to heart, truly believed that there was an opportunity for innovation, looked at something as mundane as expense reports, and had a huge impact on the organization. Now, the one way to get around this within your team and with your organization is set the expectation. Don't accept that there's no opportunity for innovation. Set the expectation that anyone can contribute, and they are expected to contribute, and that the organization as a whole has an expectation of innovations in that company, in that organization. If you set that expectation and don't tolerate people backing off from that, good things will happen. Now, secondarily, I want to talk a little about self-doubt. We all face self-doubt. If you're going to have an innovation attitude, if you're creative, if you're coming up with ideas, you are going to fall into this trap of self-doubt. You come up with an idea, you go to bed, you wake up in the morning, you go, well, it really wasn't as good of an idea as I thought. Somebody obviously has already done this. Why am I even bothering? That's self-doubt. You have to be positive. Innovation is about being positive. You're doing these innovations to have impact on people, to have impact on your organization. Come up with something great that people really will love. So innovation in its own right is a positive activity. So you have to latch on to that. Self-doubt triggers pausing, or you're slowing down, or you're doubting whether or not the idea is really good, so you don't even get started. You give up on it, which means self-doubt leads to no innovation. And one of the underlying causes that I've dug through when I'm talking to people who are really suffering from questioning, one, their own ability or the quality of their ideas is fear of failure. We use self-doubt talk, things like, oh, somebody's obviously done this before, it's not new, I'm not that smart, what makes me think I could have come up with that idea before somebody else? It's fear of failure, right? Get over it. We all fail. I fail. Everybody fails. Everybody's had a failure in their career. They've stumbled. They've tried something that doesn't work. Everybody has failed. The winners are the ones who pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and go try another one. Try something else. Failure doesn't mean that you give up and walk away. Failure is a learning process. Now you know what doesn't work. Go off and try something different. That is the key piece. Now, the last is what I call the comfort zone. You have to get out of your comfort zone. We do things kind of the same way we've always done it for years and years and years, right? We've got ourselves into our career. We've got ourselves into our position. We've got ourselves promoted maybe into management. Now we just want to have the status quo stay in place. That is not the attitude when it comes to innovation. Innovation is about change. It's about disrupting. It's about, forcing the organization to have to relook at itself. You want to cause stress within the organization. Innovation is all about change, and change is uncomfortable. Now, what I find really funny is when I talk to people about change, right? Everybody mentally gets their head around change. Change is, we know it. The industry's changing. It's speeding up. We have to change. But what I find really interesting is that when I talk to people and I ask them really deep down questions about what is their attitude on change, their issue is that change is fine. But in their opinion, they're okay. The other person needs to change. The other department needs to change. If that other department changed, then we would be great. Everything would be fine. So change is fine as long as everybody else has to change and not you. That is one of the biggest challenges within organizations when it comes to, this whole concept of change management. I love that term, change management. What the heck does that mean? You can't, it's not about, managing kind of these incrementals. Innovation is about being disruptive. You're going to cause stress in the organization. And if you're not comfortable with stress, that's getting you out of your comfort zone. And there's lots of things involved in innovation that you need to get out of your comfort zone on, right? So one example is, one of the common questions I get is, what is my favorite killer question? The one that I just use all the time. And the killer question that I used for many, many years is what do my customers not like about the buying experience of my product? So what is it they don't like about the buying experience? Well, the only way to find that out, think about it. How do you find customers who looked at your product, but at that last instant when they made the buy decision, they chose a competitor? How do you do that? Well, the way I did it is you would find me most weekends standing in retail. In the U.S., I'd be standing in a Best Buy store. So I'd stand there, I'd watch customers come in, they would look at our products, they would look at a competitor's products, and they would choose the competitor's product. At that moment, I would walk up, I would introduce myself. Now, that tended to freak them out. I'd hand them my business card, and I would just ask them, why did they choose the competitor's product and not our product? What was it that caused them to have that decision as they were doing their evaluation to choose the competitors? Now, me doing this podcast and the fact of all the speeches I do and the writing the blog and having the book out and all those kinds of things, you may think I'm an extrovert. I'm actually not. I'm not all that comfortable engaging with people that I don't know. Well, think about the first time that I stood in a Best Buy store, walking up to a complete stranger, handing them my business card and asking them if they would give me a few minutes where I could ask them a few questions about their decision-making process. I'll tell you, the first 25 times that I did that, my knees were knocking. Right? It forced me to get out of my comfort zone. I'd be much more comfortable sitting in my cube, reading third-party market research studies and trying to derive what the wishes of the customers are. But with all my years of experience, I know engaging directly with the customers, putting my eyeballs on the problem, getting out of my comfort zone of hiding behind market research studies and instead getting out into the field and talking to strangers was the way for me to beat this fear I had, but also to get unbelievable, phenomenal insights on how customers think. Another example is we work on products and we have product ideas and we want to go validate them. So how do you go validate an idea? Well, one way people do this is they go talk to their friends and their families and they share the idea and they ask for their feedback. The problem is all those people know you, and guess what? They're all like you. And you may or may not be a good representative example of what your target customer is. So what I recommend is take your idea, whether it's just you just telling a story or you've got 3 points in your head or you just want to get some validation, and go down to your local Starbucks. Or better yet, if you're traveling, go to a Starbucks store in a city you don't know, in an area of town that is of a different demographic than you. Walk into the Starbucks, or walk into the Pete's Coffee, or walk into the 7-Eleven, pick up your coffee, pick up your drink, whatever it is, look around, find 2 or 3 people that are in the store randomly, walk up, introduce yourself, and pitch them your idea and see what they think. That's where you're going to get the true validation versus, you tell your friends and family, go pitch your idea to your mom. Your mom's not going to want to hurt your feelings. What you want is the unvarnished view. Now, the challenge is that's scary. You're going to go into a store, you're going to pick somebody out from random, and you're going to ask them for your ideas. I'll tell you how crazy it was in one case. I was in New York, went into a Starbucks. I was pitching an idea for a brand new device concept. Not only did I get people to answer my questions, but I actually convinced them to let me follow them home to their apartments in New York and take pictures of the books they read, the magazines they read, what kind of electronics they have in their home, the computer setup that they have. Now think about it. If someone stranger walked up to you in a Starbucks, would you invite them to your home? But you go in with this attitude of, hey, I've got this great pitch, I've got this great idea, what do you think? You engage in the conversation, you build a relationship, you get honest feedback, and in these extreme cases, I was very fortunate to be able to actually go into a more in-depth conversation with some of these people, build a relationship, and some of those people we actually used for some early beta testing for some products. But the point is that would be not something that would naturally not come to me. I am not that kind of an extrovert. But I have found that I needed to get out of my comfort zone to really make that happen. So, again, on that innovation attitude, you need to get out of your comfort zone. Because if you don't, you're going to look at the same problem the exact same way. You're going to get the exact same information that you got in the past, and you're going to come to the exact same conclusions that you and your competitors are coming up with. And what's the role of innovation? Come on, what's the role of innovation? Look at the problem differently. You need to look at it differently than everybody else and you need to go beyond the obvious answer that all of your competitors are looking at. That's where you win. So again, the innovation attitude. You truly need to believe that you and your team can innovate in your business and industry. 2, you're committed to fight through the self-doubt. Use positive talk. Keep yourself motivated. Find people who can be supportive of your work and innovation, the ideas that you're coming up with, because you will suffer from the self-doubt. Get over it, buck up, lace on your tennis shoes, and get out there. 3rd, you have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. If you don't get out of your comfort zone, if you continue to do the things the exact same way you've done it, then you're going to end up doing it the exact same way, coming up with the exact same solution that all of your competitors come to. And guess what? You're not going to find that innovation that's really going to be transformative to your business and to your industry. So you got it? I hope so. So thanks for listening to the podcast. I know I was kind of a little bit of a rant, but this is something that I'm keenly passionate about. So if you have feedback on this podcast or any of the others, send it to feedback@philmckinney.com. I answer all my emails, or at least I try to answer all my emails. To learn more about this and other things that can help you with your innovation strategy or the innovation activities, both on a personal basis, or if you work in a business, or you work in a nonprofit, or you work for the government agencies, or you're just an at-home mom, take a chance and try out in these innovation approaches, because like I said, I've got one at-home mom in upstate who uses some of these approaches to come up with better ideas for their vacation. And where you can find out more information is to buy the book. Beyond the Obvious came out in February. It's available in all your bookstores. You can get on your Kindle and your Nook. And yes, it is available on audiobook, but I'll warn you, it's not my voice on the audiobook. The professional guy who did it did a phenomenal job. I'm sure because of your listening to the podcast, you would get a lot out of the audiobook. Also, visit philmckinney.com. A lot of blog posts over there. Use the search field to search for all the stories and posts about other parts of innovation that you might be interested in. Now, for those of you, if you're a first-time listener, you may not be aware of why I do the podcast. The podcast is a way for me to give back into the community my expertise and background, having been the CTO at HP. Now I'm retired, and I want to find a way to pay it forward. I had an early mentor, Bob Davis, early in my career, who invested a significant amount of time in establishing my career. And when I asked him how to pay it back to him, he said I couldn't. I needed to pay it forward. And that's why I do this podcast. So all I ask for you is, you can't pay it back to me. You need to pay it forward. Pay it forward by telling others about the podcast. Let them know about it. Let them know it's free of charge. They can go back 140 shows, all about innovation and creativity. So again, if you have comments specifically about this show, hop over to philmckinney.com. You'll see the post for today's show, and go down into the comments section and post your comments and questions. I follow those pretty closely, and I'll reply to the questions there. If you have something not related to this specific show, feel free to drop me an email at feedback@philmckinney.com, and I'll reply back to you that way. So whatever you're most comfortable with. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. Hope you have a great week. Keep your innovation attitude in check. Be positive. Try something different. Get out of your comfort zone, and be convinced that you can come up with that killer innovation this week for your business. And good luck. Bye-bye.